Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ecospacegy talk show. In this talk show, we showcase Guyanese youths making waves in the environmental realm throughout Guyana. And today I have with me Mr. Lakeram Singh. I know Mr. Singh very well, but I'd like him to introduce himself to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Lakeram Singh. I am the Chief Technical Officer at PISLM, an intergovernmental organization that promotes sustainable land management in the Caribbean, and I'm also the National Coordinator of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network in Guyana.
Yes, and for today's interview, I'd like to focus on a particular aspect of Lakeram's current environmental journey that I find very interesting. And I have a topic for today labeled as Youth Leadership in the Midst of the Climate Crisis. So tune in and let's get into these questions I have for the wonderful Lakeram. So firstly, can you please tell us, how did you become involved in environmental activism and what motivated you to take up a leadership role?
Well, I started environmental studies. Well, first I didn't know I was into that kind of thing, but I was studying at CSEC. At that point, I was like, in medical field or something. But I decided to take the break, well, not a break, but do sixth form.
Yeah.
And in sixth form, then I realized, there was environmental studies and geography and so on, that there was an actual field that I could pursue both of these things together. And I did just that. So I was in sixth form, environmental studies, and then I realized, well, hey, UG also has a course, environmental studies. And so that prompted me more. The more I read about environmental studies and learned about the more scientific and technical aspects of environment and the human aspects as well, it drew me closer, and so I decided to, well, that has become now my career. So it has been a very uplifting experience thus far. In terms of the leadership aspect, I don't exactly think I have all the right qualities of, like leader kind of situation, but I try to ensure that in any situation that I am, and where I see that there is any kind of discord or dissent or a lack of motivation to do something, I try to ensure that if no one else is taking that role up, I could be that pivot or platform that I could maybe guide other person, necessarily lead them, but guide them to some sort of enlightenment.
Yes. I see this narrative of being told or wanting to be a doctor and then venturing into different topics or studies and realizing, oh, there's another life out there. I can study so many different aspects of even the environment. As I recently had a marine biologist on, and she said the same thing. She didn't want to do medicine, but she wanted to do something more, and it really came to her that she wanted to do marine biology. And that's something great. We need more young people to understand there's more to life than traditional career paths.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
And not just what our parents want us to be.
Precisely. So continuing on this part, can you tell me how do you see youth leadership playing a crucial role in addressing the climate crisis?
Well, the climate crisis is not something that is particular to any one generation. Yeah. It has started, the whole climate movement started since 1992, right? When we had the Earth Summit in Rio and so on. And even at that time, they knew climate change would have been an issue going forward. So the youths, even back then, are the older people now, right, who would have helped to give us that platform through the Rio conventions and so on. And so youth leadership from then to now has increased, and it continues to be that beacon of light that you would need to address any issues related to climate change, because we have persons younger than us who need that voice, and they might not be drawn to a very old person or elderly person or a mature person who might put things in a more complicated way. You might need persons like us, young people, to help lead them into that next path. So youth leadership is extremely important, and in a situation where we have a large young population that at one time may not have been adequately educated on climate change or other matters, youth leadership really is pivotal, and not on an international scale where you got to have the spotlight, but simple individual community level, youth leadership is very important.
Yeah, so I always say that sometimes young people need persons that look at them or they're on the same age group as them to show them and guide them, because oftentimes they might feel you're trying to control if you're older than them or so on. But we're not negating the fact that intergenerational collaboration is always necessary. We do not claim to know it all, and we know that the ones before us who have been on this journey know vital information that they can share, and we're always open to that intergenerational sharing of knowledge. As we look at what has been done and what is currently being done, there are certain specific actions that you have taken, which along with your organization, to address the climate crisis and inspire or guide youths to get involved in the climate crisis. Can you just share some with us? Because I know there are lots.
Yeah, sure. So CYN, for those persons who don't know about the organization, is not a Guyana thing. It's a regional organization. So when we conduct activities to build awareness in any aspect, it's not just Guyana we're talking about. We're talking about the region's youths. So on a regional level, of course, CYN is accredited to a couple of the UN agencies like UNICEF and the UNCCD, and we've always had a presence with the UNFCCC, the Climate Change Convention. And in addition to just awareness, as people might say, oh, it's just awareness, in addition to those awareness-raising activities, we would have helped to build capacity of various groups within the region. For example, CYN would have had, through members from other chapters, would have conducted capacity building sessions with indigenous groups. We know we have some colleagues from Belize and Barbados who would have done some of this before. Only recently, one of our members attended a conference in Colombia, which focused on bridging that gap between indigenous groups and the issue of environmental rights and environmental defenders and the discrimination that they face. So those simple acts of sharing knowledge from one sphere to the other, between one ethnicity and the other, or one social platform and the next, those things are very important. And locally in Guyana, of course, CYN has always managed to ensure that climate change is at the forefront, because in Guyana's current situation, in Guyana's situation where we have our population living along the coastal plain, climate crisis in the form of sea level rise and flooding and so on, those things are not foreign to us. So it might not always be trash in the river, in the trenches that's causing the flooding, but climate change, which a lot of persons still haven't grasped it as yet, those things need to be further elaborated to our people.
Yeah, so now we're on the topic of climate change and our people understanding the gravity of the situation. I recently was scrolling across my Facebook and I saw person saying, well, the place is very hot and what is going on, and basically complaining about the rise in the temperature. And I said, you know what? Maybe I need to do a video explaining what is global warming and why the place is getting hot and why it will get hotter. So that's for a moment. Let's just let Mr. Singh explain to you why we are experiencing this level of heat at the moment.
Yeah, well, see, like a question like this, I would probably need like a chart, because it's like this is like a teaching moment. So if you picturing the Earth in your head, we've always been told that around the equator you get the most heat, right? And then as you go towards the poles, it gets colder. Now, global warming doesn't necessarily mean only heat, right? Or it doesn't necessarily mean that you only will experience high temperatures. Global warming can also cause lower temperatures in certain areas. And what persons tend to forget about global warming, they tend to think of global warming as in their own surroundings. They don't think of it on a global scale, even though the term says global warming, right? So in a nutshell, global warming So when our atmosphere retains too much heat, it transmits that heat to the lower parts of the atmosphere where we are, and we experience that increase in temperature. But in the reverse now, if you have a lot of heat going up towards the poles, they melt the ice caps and they raise they cause sea level rise. But then in the reverse, in the winter, for example, in the northern and extreme southern areas, their winter might actually be colder due to climate change fueled by global warming, right? So global warming is like, for example, you put stuff in a pressure pot to cook. If when the temperature gets to that correct that level, it releases steam, right? And that's like the Earth. It can only take so much heat and maintain that balance for us to live. Anything that comes beyond that is going to have drastic effect, and which is what we're experiencing now.
The heat is on.
Yeah, and the climate change is not something nowadays story. It has been accelerated and enhanced by our activities, yes. But it has been around from the beginning of time. Everything changes. But we are now complaining about it because we're now seeing increased and dire effects of it. So that's why we're complaining. But it has been around all the time.
Yes, and that's the thing. I've always said climate change naturally occurs, but we are currently exacerbating it to the point that we are going to experience changes so quickly that we can't even adapt to the changes.
Exactly.
So, and human beings are naturally very adaptable creatures. And imagine those creatures that are endemic to certain areas, that have been living within the same temperature for millenniums. And it's something we really need to take seriously, because as the greenhouse gases increase, especially the methane, carbon dioxide, and so on, they trap heat. They naturally trap heat. So the more of these gases we, from our anthropogenic activities, pump into the air, into the atmosphere, it will just get worse for us. And somebody was complaining and saying that the ozone layer. No, it is not the ozone layer.
Yeah, they're talking about the ozone layer, but the ozone layer only really protects us from the UV radiation. Yeah. But the ozone layer is actually a very thin part of the atmosphere. The rest of the atmosphere that we're living in is, kilometers thick, and a lot of the pollution is actually trapped right around us as we walk and drive on the road. And so those things help to trap more heat. Yeah. So like, in Georgetown itself, I'm pretty sure if you compare the heat within the city center of Georgetown to a rural area not too far off, you're going to see a drastic difference because of the type of materials, the type of gases and so on that we emitting in the area that trap more heat. So
exactly,
people should just think of that and then think of it on a global scale. That's exactly what's happening. The Earth is absorbing heat, atmosphere is absorbing heat, and is keeping that heat close to the planet. Yeah. So it'll not only give us heat waves, but it's going to give us very cold winters for those persons who live in those regions.
Yeah. You're going to have some really unpredictable weather coming up.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable because I believe we've been having a lot of rain in Guyana for a couple of years now, and they've already predicted that when the dry season does hit, it's going to be very extreme. Yeah,
so. The land of many waters might be in problems. You see, and that's something that we need to really hit home. The true gravity of climate change, the true gravity of global warming, the true effects. And I will make it my duty to do an entire episode just focused on that. And as we go back to what you said, which is very important, with the sharing of knowledge between persons, especially indigenous persons, different backgrounds. We have learned from the environment that in diversity we have strength. So how do you maintain diversity and inclusivity within your organization to ensure you have different point of views that are aimed, and persons have different strengths? Yeah. As a leader, you have to know the strengths of the persons in your organization and really use that to propel the organization forward. How do you ensure you include that?
So when persons hear about the name of organization, right, Caribbean Youth Environment, they think, you're just all people who study the environment or geography or biology, but it's that, yes, and more. So currently we have persons with just pure business, economics, finance background within CYN. And when you think about the environment, think about everything else you've ever enjoyed in your life. The things that you enjoy on a daily basis, an environmental studies expert didn't make that. More than likely, a technologist or some computer scientist helped to design your phone or something like that. So when you're looking at the environment, you have to be inclusive. To just say you're only going to build the capacity of science people is a detriment to yourself and the environment at large. How do you know who's going to help you to understand what resources you could use, where you could mine it, how to go about doing it sustainably? And many times it's not really going to be an environmental person going to tell you that. It might be somebody with a pure finance background, right? An economics major or something. Take, for example, the monies that we get from the climate change conventions. Who manages that money and who determines how much money a country should get? It's not an environmentalist. No, it's as a financial expert that does that.
Yeah.
Right? So being inclusive is very important, and it is not just about academics, right? There are a lot of persons who can give so much more contribution just because of what they have from their experiences in their life against what they would have studied in the classroom.
Yeah.
And so those things, in terms of being inclusive, don't always look for people with the long set of accolades behind the name. There are a lot of persons out there who just have day-to-day experiences that can give you so much data, so much statistics, and can give you such a boost in energy and motivation to do certain things. And those are the people we tend to throw by the wayside, don't pay too much attention. So like for example, CYN, when you register for CYN, we don't really ask you, we don't really say anywhere in our registration form, you have to have had background in science or whatever. No, we just need your name, what your interests are, what is it that motivates you to join us or the environmental movement, and that's it. Once you could prove that you're a motivated individual and you're committed to the task at hand, that's fine for me.
Yeah.
I'm not really looking for anything else.
Precisely, and this is the thing, we need to break down that barrier between environmental organizations and person's career path. No matter the career path you take, the environment involves you. Exactly. You are a part of it, you're not apart from it. So you can be a part of an environmental organization and have a degree in anything. And the mere fact that sustainable development requires social development, economic development, and environmental protection, it shows that we need persons from different backgrounds. And on the topic of sustainable development, as we think of what we want to do and what path we want to take, in your opinion actually, what policies and actions should governments and corporations prioritize to mitigate the effects of climate change? As we're currently in a crisis, and we need to protect the environment for our future generations.
Well, that question there is very broad.
Yeah.
That's like a thesis. That's like the whole that's the theme of any one of the climate conventions.
Yeah.
Everybody's always going to see how could I get more money from the US or Norway or China or whoever. So what can you actually tell a government or corporations? A lot of governments have actually endorsed and accepted this whole the youth movement, right, into their regular programming. Even in Guyana, we have the youth parliament and so on, and we're seeing more persons bringing environment into their conversation, and not from a sense of climate change really, but from a perspective of a healthy environment, right? So governments, it's not that they don't know that they should be doing this. It's just that, like with other situations of capitalism, a lot of persons tend to keep all the resources and want to always have the power to make decisions and influence decision makers, and not bring other people into the mix. But bringing other people, and back to the previous question, having that diversity is very important. Governments, I think, have made strides over the past maybe 2 or so decades to really incorporate environment into most of their initiatives. There are cases where persons say, you know, it's just greenwashing, where we just say, oh, it's environmentally friendly, but then it's not really environmentally friendly. We have some situations like that, but to governments, I would say that putting environment into everything is for your benefit. Would you like for 50 years from now to call a country your own that is just full of poverty and degradation and pollution? Or would you like to say you are ruling a country full of resources, full of intelligent individuals and clean environment and people who are experiencing a high quality of life? So they got to weigh these things. A lot of governments, I think, is a race. You know, you're going to do a lot of gold mining or bauxite mining to get a lot of money so you can develop so and so. Or, you know, like with oil, you're going to drill for oil so you can get money to do so and so. But what is the, you know, in the long term, are you going to ensure that you have systems in place? Are you going to ensure that the system is inclusive? So, I mean, corporations are a different, are a whole different situation by themselves.
Yeah.
But even they themselves are realizing now that in order to get to carry up their revenue and really get people to support their business is to put environment into these things, sustainability into these things, and really fulfill their what you call social corporate responsibilities, their mandates, and it's not just for revenue, but the more persons, if you're really true and honest about your business, you would want persons to exhibit that same kind of quality who are working for you, who are your consumers, and so on. So the only real big advice I could give governments and corporations is to be inclusive.
Yeah.
Right? You can't want to keep all the resources for a certain set of people or make decisions to only benefit a certain set of people. You have to be inclusive, listen to everybody, and not just listen, actually internalize what people are saying and try to bring their suggestions, have their suggestions and so on bear fruit. Because a lot of these conventions, youths are there and they're given the floor. You could talk whole day, but at the end of the day,
what
your words are just going into a report, right? To look nice, get some pictures, and they're not really acting on it.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yeah. And that's the thing, we need to understand that if you want to have long-term development, you must consider the environment. If you want to have sustainable development, which benefits countries in the long term, you must consider the environment. And you must consider all sectors of people, because we, no matter where we are, no matter where we live, no matter the age we are at, impact the environment and are impacted by the environment.
Without the environment, there is no us.
Yeah.
So persons tend to think of the environment as well. You said it before, as something separate from us, but no, we are part of the environment.
And as we were talking about young persons speaking and being a part of these processes, sometimes we need help, sometimes we need support to actually make this change. You see, Ecospacegy was made possible by UNICEF in partnership with the Rights of the Child Commission, and I was given a grant through the Climate Change Makers Initiative to actually have this program aired. And this episode today is actually sponsored by Europa Group of Companies, right? And oftentimes, we as young people don't have the capital at the moment to do the great change you want to do, and we need organizations, we need persons to see that we're trying to do something good. And so how would you say can individuals or corporations or groups of persons support and contribute to the efforts of youth leaders like ourselves in combating climate change and creating a more sustainable world?
Well, the first thing for any person, individual, community is education.
Yeah.
You can't go and profess something just because you see it on social media or you hear somebody talking passionately about it. But you should also have the information, have the facts. Go educate yourself about this particular phenomenon. You can't. And that's where a lot of the misconceptions come from. Persons just go out there and hollering about climate change and global warming. You got to stop doing this, stop doing that, and a lot of organizations even might go and protest against these oil companies and so on. Yes, we are very well aware that burning fossil fuels is causing climate change, but it's kind of hypocritical that you are enjoying the benefits of it, but you are going to lobby these people to stop doing it. Kind of don't make sense to me if you do. There aren't many widespread alternatives, but and I think that's like for me too. When I was a student, I didn't have all the information, right? The education to make a sound decision at the time. So, and there are many persons out there who think that environmental studies or science might be boring, but it's actually not.
It's very interesting.
It's very interesting. It's very inclusive, holistic. You get to do so many other things. Because right now, I mean, I study environmental science and now completing a postgrad in water and land management mostly, but within sustainable development. And what I'm actually doing now is more of like project management, right? But I'm managing environmentally based projects. So even though I don't have a professional background in project management, I am able to see where there are shortfalls and opportunities based on my own, own education, and you kind of learn along the way. So, and none of that could be possible if I didn't educate myself first. If I didn't have the information, I couldn't make sound decisions. So my recommendation to everyone is become educated on the topic, be aware. Only then would you be able to make an informed decision if you could get involved in any initiative. You don't want to go into an initiative and you go half-heartedly and you don't put all your efforts behind it, or you put your efforts and you're not rewarded and then you complain. So you educate yourself first on it.
I always say that environmental education is something vital and something every human being should be a part of some point in your life. Secondary school, primary school, from the nursery school level, you should know some base level information about the environment, because it will bridge that disconnect that we have with the environment. Because if you do not know about your impacts, how does it look you going to international cooperation to them, you're doing this, you're doing that, and I heard this. Do you know that you buy single-use plastics every single day? Have you made an effort to limit your consumption of plastics that come from that very fossil fuel? And it's really deep. And I also should focus on that also. Us limiting our own carbon footprint before we go to international organizations telling them to limit theirs.
That's true. And you see a lot of fights about that in the international arena. The small island developing states like Guyana is part of that. And the islands would go and fight for money for this, money for that. But are you really making the effort locally though to curb your actions? I mean, I understand the whole thing that you about climate reparations and so on. Bigger countries have reached a certain scale of economic scale and so on. So you might want to justify by saying, so why should I hold back my comfort, my enjoyment? Look how good they're living. But there are simple things that you could do that wouldn't take away from your comfort or enjoyment.
Exactly.
And that would reduce your carbon and ecological footprint. And those are the things that, when you're not educated, you tend to just be, as you say, wrong and strong about it.
Exactly.
Right? And, it don't really make sense.
Yeah, we must be educated before we wish to speak. So lastly, I like to close this episode with a very inspiring ending. I'd like you to just say a few words of inspiration to anybody who wants to enter into the environmental realm as an activist, as a volunteer, as a leader, and of course invite them to join your organization also.
All right, well, thanks so much first of all for having me today. In terms of inspiration, I think persons should just people say this all the time, follow your dreams, right? And people think, especially older people might say, that's stupidness. I mean, follow your dreams. But you'd be surprised how many persons become educated and to do other things, but still fall back on following their dreams in such a magnificent way that one person might not think possible, right? So my word of inspiration to especially young people is to really set your mind on something and set your goals and follow those cues and those make those jumps and take those stepping stones towards achieving your goal or your dream. There is nothing like a stupid dream or a stupid goal or plan, right? If this opportunity or this goal is going to ensure that you're uplifted, you're comfortable, you are giving back to society in a positive manner, go for it. Everyone don't have to be a brilliant lawyer, a doctor, or whatever the case is, and I know everyone does not have to go and work for the oil company. No, there's so many other
there's so many
other things that we need in Guyana, professionals to be doing in Guyana. Set your mind on it and put your best foot forward. And you're never alone. Yeah. I've heard people say this a lot, especially young people. I'm not sure if it's coming from a mental, if it's their mental state or what, but a lot of persons tend to say they feel alone when it comes to maybe these academic things, but that's never the case.
No.
Education is free, it's out there. Yeah. Internet is kind of free. It's very affordable in Guyana. Information is always there, and there are people like us around all the time who could assist in any way.
That's true.
When we were in school, we probably were looking at UG people thinking, oh, this is so up there. But then we have gone through UG and we are now working and we're still learning.
Yeah, every day.
And I'm not sure about other people, but I know I feel a sense of gratitude and a sense of pride when I could help a young person, a student or something with some work that I would have studied. And you would see that, the enlightenment in their face and the appreciation. And I would encourage younger people and even people like us and older ones to always lend a helping hand to the person next to you. We have a lot of misconceptions out there about the environment, climate change, global warming. It might be somewhat of a topic that's always being talked about, but we are the ones that are going to feel the effect of climate change and poor environmental policies in the future as young people.
Yeah.
We can't wait until we are put into a decision-making position to make that change. It might be too late.
Yeah.
Right? So now is the time to raise your voices, articulate exactly what it is you want to say and see in the change in your environment and go full steam ahead.
Yeah. We need to now learn from the mistakes of the past and take a proactive approach to environmental activism, to addressing the climate crisis. Only then we might have a fighting chance. Only then.
Only then. It's only when everybody gets involved, then we really have a fighting chance. We're already seeing drastic effects from climate change as well. Not only in Guyana, but you see it all over, even in the developed countries, forest fires, flooding, in places that you don't really see it happen too often. And just 2 weeks ago, we had almost all of the temperature records broken in 1 week.
Every single one.
So it is not an imagination anymore. Climate change, it is reality.
And I always say
we need to embrace it and try to see what we can do to change that.
Change it. We need to make it a personal thing. People need to see how it really affects them. And we have seen it with Texas having that snowstorm that caused deaths. I think some parts in South Africa had snow for the first time.
Well,
I'm like, we're seeing it. We are experiencing it. So ensure you look for the Caribbean Youth Environment Network in Guyana on Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
And there's a sign-up form right on the Facebook page.
Yes, on the Facebook page, just click sign up and then the form comes to us and then we contact you and we take it from there.
And let's be a part of this movement and let's take a proactive decision to fighting the climate crisis. Thank you for watching.